I want you to imagine a world for a minute in which politicians don't exist. In this world, the government is run not by the winners of elections, but by the winners of lotteries. That's right, you, your neighbor, your teacher, your mailman, any of these people could be chosen to get political power if they're lucky enough to win the lottery. Now, this world may sound like some radical fantasy, but what I'm actually describing is one of the earliest forms of democracy, sortition. Sortition is the selection of political representatives by lottery, and in ancient Athens, it was the foundation of democracy and was used to fill many judicial and administrative roles. You might be surprised to learn that sortition did not die with ancient Athens. In recent years, it has been experimented with in countries across the globe. For example, in Ireland, in the 2010s, a randomly selected group considered constitutional questions on topics such as abortion. In 2012, randomly selected groups in Iceland proposed constitutional amendments, and these are not the only examples. Since 2000, there has been 105 randomly selected groups used at all levels of government across Europe. But I'm not here to talk about where sortition has been. I'm here to talk about where it's going: student government. Over the past year, I've worked with a small number of students to try to implement sortition in the William and Mary Student Assembly. As you might imagine, this has been an uphill battle. Sortition is a foreign and seemingly risky concept that challenges centuries of status quo of what democracy is, should, and can be. But I want you to ask yourself, is the status quo working? Do you think that democracy is working effectively? If you said no, you're not alone. Only 28% of Americans, a record low, think that democracy is working effectively. Abroad, we see similar themes. In Europe, for decades, political participation and voter turnout have been trending downwards. Given this dissatisfaction, innovation in government is needed, and where better to innovate than in student governments? These are low-stakes but high-visibility environments in which we can test out new ideas, learn more about their strengths and weaknesses. Fortunately, sortition in student government is not without precedent. In 2014, a group of academics and activists implemented sortition in a few Bolivian high schools. At these schools, student representatives that were previously chosen by elections were replaced by the winners of lotteries. At the end of the experiment, 75% of surveyed students said they preferred sortition to elections, and a whopping 97% of surveyed students said they would recommend other schools adopt sortition. But why were these students so impressed, and why is sortition gaining so much traction abroad? To understand that, let's start by assessing the system that sortition seeks to replace: elections. Why do we have them? What do they select for? We'd like to think that elections select the best and brightest among us for leadership. That was the opinion of the American founding fathers. They thought that elections would ensure that the most talented and virtuous people, members of the natural aristocracy, would be given political power. But fundamentally, all that elections select for are people who are skilled at campaigning. This is problematic because campaigning and legislating are different things, and they reward and attract different skill sets. Granted, there is some overlap. Campaigning requires a strong work ethic, organization, and dedication, but it also rewards and attracts charisma, ambition, aggression, and the dark triad traits: Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism. Some psychologists have linked these dark triad traits to interest in politics, political ambition, and most concerningly, performance in elections. So what do elections do? They don't select the best and brightest among us. They select natural politicians. Now, on their own, I have no problem with these natural politicians, but issues arise when we fill our legislatures almost exclusively with these natural politicians. Personalities clash, priorities get mixed, and you end up with a combative and inefficient legislature whose members are more interested in their own political careers than in the interests of their constituents. I'm sure you're all familiar with the old adage, those who seek power are the least worthy to wield it, but it's one I think we need to take more seriously. When we replace elections with lotteries, we expand the pool of potential representatives to include people who are interested in serving, but not interested in the politicking required by campaigning. These are the types of people I'd trust to run the government. And when we bring them into the fold, we get more cohesive, efficient, and virtuous legislatures. Another added benefit of getting rid of campaigns: no campaign donors. Sortition rids politics of money, and with it, the incentives of representatives to be more sensitive to the needs of the rich and powerful. Now, the obvious issue that most people raise when I talk about sortition is the competency of randomly selected people. Now, I sympathize with this. When my housemate pronounces bagel as bagel because it has the word bag in it, I cringe at the thought of him voting, let alone getting the power to make laws. Also, he was late here tonight because he poured 4 quarts of oil into his engine and had to get his car towed. But for every one of your friends like that, I have another housemate who's currently touring PhD programs at UC Berkeley. But even my less bright housemate, I would trust him in a randomly selected group because randomly selected bodies benefit from the wisdom of the crowds. It's a concept that we've been familiar with for millennia. As Aristotle suggests, even individuals without special knowledge, when they come together as a group, can outperform experts. In modern times, psychologists have stressed the importance of cognitive diversity for group performance. That is, groups that can draw on diverse opinions will outperform those that have more competent but less cognitively diverse individuals. Compare the cognitive diversity of a randomly selected group to that of the 118th Congress, where 50% of the Senate and 30% of the House had law degrees. Not only does this homogeneity prevent Congress from drawing from the wisdom of the crowds, that shared background does not make them better legislatures. Governing society is such a broad and complex task that no single background or experience or skill set can fully qualify you for it. After all, a law degree does not make you an expert in economics or foreign policy. There's a reason that so many representatives outsource policy creation to lobbyists, corporations, and advisors. We need cognitive diversity for these successful groups. And when we expand the breadth of our bodies, we ensure that they are more competent as a group. When we're building our legislatures, we should not try to maximize the competency of individual representatives. Rather, we should try to maximize the competency of the group by enabling them to draw on the wisdom of the crowds. The best way to do that is through random selection. Now, one alternative system, of course, that could accomplish similar things is direct referendum-based democracy. But in such a system, mob rule is a real possibility. Sortition is different. In a randomly selected group, people with different ideas from different backgrounds are forced to look each other in the eyes as they make decisions. Real people with real incentives for compromise. Not politicians who thrive off of viral clips, attentions, and division. Under sortition, we can expect compromise. We can truly hope for unity. Now, some of the critiques that I've outlined don't apply to student government. For example, I don't think that most student representatives are narcissistic psychopaths. I do, however, think that student government would benefit immensely from sortition. There isn't much data available on student representatives, but I'd venture that most are outgoing students with an interest in politics and experience in student government. As with national legislatures, this homogeneity leads to inefficiencies and groups that are underrepresented. Take William&Mary's campus. 35% of the student body majors in a STEM discipline, yet only 3 senators are STEM majors. 10% of the student body are athletes, yet athletes are not represented at all in the student senate. When we expand the types of students that we include in student government, we broaden their horizons. In the Bolivian experiment, student governments went from planning school dances to building libraries and combating human trafficking. Now, I don't know if the success of the Bolivian experiment would be replicated at William&Mary. Sortition is not perfect. It does have issues. But the best way to work through those issues is through experimentation, and where better than at the alma mater of the nation, the birthplace of American democracy. William&Mary has been a leading innovator in the past, and we must continue to be. We must not let perfection be the enemy of innovation. Innovation is a risk, but stagnation is an even bigger one. Because when democracy is put to the test, the politicians won't save you. The elections won't save you. The institutions won't save you. All that exists are your neighbors. Have the courage to empower them.